Today is Monday, February 28th, and therefore a council night for the city of St. Catharines. There are a lot of items on the agenda for tonight, so let's dive into our update right now. So first up on the agenda is a designation under the Ontario Heritage Act, actually for the Port Dalhousie Carousel. Now, some of you may be surprised to think, hey, isn't that already designated? And it was back in 1983, but little complications. It was repealed in 2002, not for any particular reason saying it's not heritage, but because the Port Dalhousie Heritage Conservation District, which encompassed a lot of Old Port, was brought in that year, and there were some rules in the act around you couldn't be designated for two different things. And so anyway, now that has opened up a little bit, and they are looking to give a notice of intention to designate tonight. And this just ensures long-term protection and really the appropriate conservation of this valuable heritage asset. For those who don't know, this carousel was built back in the, I think, 1890s, the later part of the 1800s, and it was brought to St. Catharines from across the Lake Ontario from Scarborough in 1921. So it has been here in St. Catharines for over 100 years, and it is one of 9 antique carousels from across the nation. We have one of 9 right here. So it's a special gem for St. Catharines, it's a special gem for Niagara, and just kudos to the friends of the carousel who go and maintain these horses and the all of that. So it's just a beautiful piece of heritage in our community, and this seems like a bit of a no-brainer tonight. So next up on the agenda is another dealing with the heritage designation, but it's a little different. So the city is looking to recommend designation on the Heritage Register, which is a little bit different than a heritage designation, for 15 buildings downtown. So what the Heritage Register does is simply says if somebody wants to demolish that building, it gives a 60-day kind of pause for any demolitions or removals that may be proposed, so that staff have the proper time to kind of look into what's going on with that building, what is the heritage. It gives them that chance for due diligence. Now, this is different than a heritage designation, where that is a lot more restrictive. It says that not only can you not demolish it, but you can't even make some alterations, and all alterations, changes have to go through city by view of permit and things like that. So this, I looked at all the buildings, the 15 properties that are being proposed for this. They were all built in the late 1800s, 1880s, 90s. I think one of them was from the early 1900s, but they're all over 100 years old. So it kind of makes sense to at least put that 60-day pause. It's not to say that, you know, they can't be torn down or anything like that if there's some proper development that could go there, but it's at least giving staff that opportunity in the city to say, hold on, let's take a look at the heritage value of these buildings. So that is being proposed tonight. Next up on the agenda, also to do with development approvals, is actually a streamlining approval or streamlining process that they want to approve. And this is really exciting because it's something that I've heard from a number of developers, a number of investors who just say that dealing with St. Catharines City Hall is a bit of a pain. A number of them have actually said that they won't deal in St. Catharines anymore. They'll deal in other places in Niagara, but they won't deal because of either slowness or political issues or whatever the case may be. But we've lost a lot of development from them. And I mean, this is acknowledged right in the report. To quote the report, it says, staff from Planning and Building Services have collaborated in the past with the Niagara Home Builders Association and the Niagara Construction Association on process improvements, service delivery, and building code changes. Unfortunately, a lack of resources has prevented many of these measures from being implemented. So, I mean, staff, the city, they've known for a number of years that there are issues around our processes, and they just haven't been able to fix it. So this report or this process is looking to finally make some improvements there. This is actually made possible because the provincial government last month in January opened up a new fund, the Streamline Development approval fund, and they said St. Catharines is eligible for $1 million to help streamline their process. So this is good news. Thank you to the province for that. This includes process improvements, it includes technology improvements, software and hardware. I think those are all good things to make it more user-friendly for those who want to develop, those who want to invest in our city. Those are all good things. Something that's a bit concerning is the city also wants to use $700,000 of that $1 million fund for new staff in the development department. And the reason why this is a bit concerning is, yes, the grant is going to cover it this year. It's a fund, but will it cover it in future years, or will that be borne by taxpayers? That concerns me a little bit about the sustainability of using it in this way. I think the process improvements, I think the software and hardware improvements are good changes, and I hope that they really help developers and investors in our city. But the staffing, increasing our staffing complement by the number that they'd like to, is a bit concerning. I'll be interested to hear the discussion tonight if there's ideas on how to mitigate those tax burdens in future years. Overall, I'm really excited to see in a few months after this is implemented the feedback from developers, from investors, see if this was a positive change and if we can start to bring development back into St. Catharines. Only time will tell. Final thing on the consent agenda tonight is the Grantham rail trail improvements. So the Grantham trail line goes from Parnell by the Grantham Lions Club all the way down to the Walmart on Welland Avenue. It's a great walking, biking path that's been used for quite a while now, since the train tracks were shut down in 1995. And the city is looking at finally paving them as part of their active transit map that they're trying to fill in. I think this is a really great initiative. It's something that was talked about when I was on council. They're looking at using gas tax funding for this, which again is a good idea. For those who know about the gas tax, the federal and provincial governments have put a tax on gas, as we all know, with the taxes or the gas rates going up. But the municipalities actually get a portion of that back to spend specifically on active transit. So things that improve our biking capacity, or anything that kind of incentivizes people to not use cars, to get them off the gas and into active transit. Now, something when I was on council that I really had a problem with is we would use the money from that gas tax fund from the federal government and spend it on roads. And I'd say, how is that possible? It's supposed to be going for active transit. And they said, well, that money's going for the bike lanes on those roads, so therefore it's active transit. And I actually moved a motion that said that needs to stop, and they can be used for maybe off-trail designs, like our trails within all of our parks, that kind of thing, off-road trails. If we're going to do separate bike paths along roads, then I'm for that for sure. But this money was being used really just for roads, which I thought was an unfair use. And now they're looking at this. What the report is tonight is reallocating some of that funding from that pot into paving this off-road trail, the Grantham trail line. So I think this is a good use. I don't know, didn't see the timing of this happening in the report, but hopefully it'll be done or completed in the next couple of years. So good on that. The last two items on the agenda are actually public meetings. So there's a few buildings that are being proposed, so people can go and comment on what they think of these builds. The first up is actually Rodman Hall. For those who don't know, Rodman Hall was sold from being an art gallery, and it's actually going to be converted into a 13-room hotel with an associated event space. Now, what's really great about this application is it's called a zoning change, but they're really not changing the zoning. They're just adding some, allowing it to be used for a hotel. In the plan, it specifically says that no additions to the building or major site alterations are proposed. So from a heritage aspect, they're not planning on tearing it down. They're not planning on making big changes. They're actually keeping it pretty much intact. And it actually goes on to say that the owner has advised that the existing network of pathways will remain open to the public. So this is really a best case scenario, is barring it staying as an art gallery in public use as it was. This is going to be owned by the private, so it's not going to burden taxpayers, and yet the people can still have use of its many network of pathways, its gardens, and it will bring in tax dollars as a hotel at this time. So good job to the developer, kind of preserving the heritage here. They're not asking for any crazy new buildings or anything like that. They're keeping the building with no major alterations. So good on that. The final application, the final thing I want to talk about tonight is an application for a zoning bylaw change at 290 Oakdale Avenue. This is just south of Westchester, and they're looking to build a 6-story, 68-unit apartment building. Now, for those who don't know the area, it's already zoned high density, it's already zoned neighborhood residential. There's an apartment already to the north, an apartment already to the south. This seems like a really good place to put another apartment. So from that perspective, it seems like a great build. They're asking for a few changes for setbacks, which don't seem like a huge problem. One of the things, though, that's concerned some of the residents is they're asking for a reduction in the number of parking spaces. Our zoning bylaw requires a certain amount of parking spaces based on the number of units, and they're asking for a sizable reduction in that number. And some residents in the surrounding area are concerned this will lead to people parking on their streets and congestion and things like that. The response from staff and the developer in this case was that over half of the units proposed are to be rented at below market rates, and also for older adults. And that demographic doesn't always have cars, and so they may not need as many parking spaces. We'll see how that plays out tonight in the discussion. The comments from the surrounding area, from the residents, are, I think, universally negative in the report. So we'll see what the ward councillors have to say on behalf of the residents. And overall, as I said, I'm very pro bringing in more residential units, because as we increase demand, it will hopefully help stop price increases for housing and things like that to keep going up. So anyway, very full council meeting tonight. Sorry about the long video. I hope it was informative. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, make sure to reach out to me. Some people have been asking me, well, what happened to some of these things that I'm talking about? What happened at council? What was the decision? And so I've been playing around with doing after council decision videos as well. And put it in the comments if you think that would be useful for you. Well, have a great week. Tomorrow is the start of March, which means it's going to be the start of spring soon. Some nice warm weather coming, spring cleaning. Have a great rest of your week, and bye for now.